welcome to Thursday.
Hello.
We're finally back for another tea time video. If you like the content, please like and subscribe. We try and do this every Thursday as long as we have something to talk about. Based on the topics I have outlined today, we're probably going to have to censor some of our words thanks to the YouTube algorithm, which I know we all hate, but it is what it is. I was going to ask you, I flew first class down to California. How do you feel about that?
I was happy about that.
Are you upset about it?
I love flying first class. That's why I love Alaska Airlines, because they make it relatively easy for us.
Oh, yes. Sponsor us, Alaska Airlines.
They make it pretty easy for us commoners to take a first class flight every once in a while.
That's true. And they have, in their lounge, they have this automatic pancake maker that was like the best for me. It was like the only thing I could eat, and it was amazing.
Yes. I've heard. Repeatedly.
Anyway, we have a lot of stuff to go over today and from weeks ago, so I thought we would start with the Sussex Christmas card photo, which was very cute.
It was very cute. It was perfect as far as Christmas card video.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. And then
even though, not looking at the camera apparently means it's all about you to some people, but despite
they had to find something. They had to find something.
Yes. And if seriously the looking at their children instead of the camera is the worst they can come up with,
Which is funny because I'm pretty sure when they did that time photo shoot and they were looking at the camera, they said the same thing.
Yeah.
There's nowhere you can look.
No.
Apparently.
Right.
Well, what was funny about the photos is that the kids are white. Someone said aggressively ginger. So it's just funny that if the royal family had kind of contained their concerns,
yes,
that they had they had very white children.
Yes.
Also, something just to note on that day on Twitter, it was actually responded to quite well because, at least on Twitter, an account called Murky Meg was permanently banned a couple months ago. And it has changed the landscape. And it just goes to show how one account, a single account, hate account, just completely changed things.
Yeah. No, I tend to only... I don't know. My feed tends to be fairly positive in general, undoubtedly, because who I've chosen to follow.
True.
But I thought it was particularly positive that day.
Yeah.
It was good.
No, it was good. It was cute.
Photo.
It's a cute photo.
Yeah.
Anyway, right afterwards, Kate Middleton played a few bars on the piano, and the UK press acted like she had cured cancer and landed on Mars on the same day. And it was just kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, this sort of... I kind of like the reverse. What made me really laugh was the kind of reverse of that somehow they released the Christmas card just to, not let Kate have all the glory to which she was otherwise entitled because of this wonderful... at first it was just about the concert or whatever itself, the program, the event. And,
it's exhausting.
If they actually did that, more power to them. But I really think it was a coincidence.
Well, and it just...
But then it looks like, and the way the whole timing of it went, it looked like the sort of Kate piano playing thing was in response to that, even though that probably wasn't exact.
I think it came after.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. When they used to have the Sussex Royal Instagram account, if they posted anything in the same week as a royal event, they were, labeled as trying to overshadow.
And it's, things happen, more than one thing happens in the world at a time, and there's not always a causal connection between the two things.
Well,
I know that's a newsflash.
And it just drove me nuts because it was such obvious self-promotion. They put out all these Instagram pages with Kate playing the piano in every photo. It's literally always projection. 100% of the time it's projection, because that's what they say Meghan does. Oh, it's always self-promotion. It's always all about her.
Right.
This was painfully obvious PR and painfully obvious self-promotion.
Yes.
But instead she was lauded like she had, raised Prince Philip from the dead.
Yeah. Well, more power to her. I wouldn't want to get up and play piano on national television. But
well, it was pre-recorded. And they had a backup pianist.
But still.
Come on. She was playing chords.
Okay, more. I don't think it's fine, whatever. If this was just something she did all the time and they weren't all so annoying about, everything Meghan does, then again, who cares? Yeah. I mean, she played the piano, fine, it's nice, whatever. Christmas, woohoo. That's all well and good. I mean, there's no reason. This is the whole problem with this whole thing is there's no reason that everyone can't coexist in the world, in and outside the royal family with these family members and do things and not always have it be that something one person does is remotely a reflection on what anybody else does. They should all just go out there and live their best lives and have a good time.
That's Mom's little New Year. Go out, live your best life, have a good time.
There we go. Seriously, why don't I don't get why they just can't do that, but they clearly can.
They clearly can't.
I think maybe Harry and Meghan can. They seem to sort of be following that philosophy.
Wow, they're following your advice?
Yeah, they're following my advice. No, obviously they're not.
It was so over the top.
They're not following my advice. They are going out there and living their best life and just having a good time.
It's just so obvious. Like it's painfully obvious.
Yeah. But they're having a bad month, so they.
Well, we're going to talk about it. And then unfortunately after that, Archbishop Desmond Tutu passed away. And I don't know if you saw his videos with the Dalai Lama, but you have to watch them because they just make fun of each other the whole time. Like these two really serious guys just totally rag on each other.
I think the one thing about Desmond Tutu that was always so nice about him was that he is a serious guy. I mean, he's a guy with like a serious place in the world and a serious position and serious things, and he's lived through some, obviously serious times, and but he has clearly he clearly never lost his capacity for like joy and happiness and just fun, and that's commendable, I think.
Yeah. But I'll show it to you afterwards. Okay. They're hilarious. You can tell that they're like obviously have been friends for a really long time and they just rag on each other.
Yeah.
It's great. So on December 28th, Richard Eden, one of the more vile royal reporters, decided to tweet claiming that Harry and Meghan's continued criticism of racist royals had increased the danger of the attacks or increased the risk of attacks on the royal family. I wanted to point out that Harry and Meghan haven't talked about it since March. So it's interesting why he felt the need to tweet this on December 28th. And kind of blaming Harry and Meghan preemptively for any kind of attack on the royal family is messed up.
Yeah.
So in response, I don't know who started this, but whoever it is, I love them. On December 29th, members of the Sussex squad decided to be a little petty and got Prince William affair trending in pretty much every country. Big accounts got involved, including a Scottish reporter who stated that UK news outlets have had evidence of said affair for years and have chosen to squash them. And they had a very bad day on Twitter.
Yeah.
They had a bad couple days on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just, again, everything that happens in the UK doesn't have anything to do with Harry and Meghan in California.
No.
And there seems to be obviously, I think the people who are reporting things like that realize that too. I mean, it's not like he really believes this nonsense, but they've just decided that the most convenient scapegoat for every single thing that goes wrong with the royal family is Harry and Meghan's fault.
Yes. Well, and every time this thing trends, more people kind of chime in with more evidence that it happened.
Yeah.
Which is funny, number one. Because, I mean, who cares? Who cares what Prince William is doing in his free time? No one gives a shit. The question then, though, becomes, is he using taxpayer money to do it?
Right.
Namely, all those helicopter flights, where is he going? And if the British royal family really have the power to silence a whole nation's news outlet, that's insane.
It is insane.
Well, and the third thing is, it's clear, even if it's not true, which in my opinion it is, there's just too much smoke for there not to be some degree of fire underneath there. even if it's not true, there is more than enough for a paper to have published something, even talking about kind of what people were talking about, and they didn't. And again, okay, kind of going against what you said, I mean, Meghan would cough and they would write a whole article about how, you know, she was supporting terrorism in Yemen and blah, blah, blah. So it's just, there's been
Right,
enough.
but that's why else, I mean, it's just, I mean, clearly there's a humongous double standard.
Yes.
And obviously, I mean, I think people think, rightly, wrongly, whatever, that, you know, maybe there's a distinction between senior members of the British royal family and people who are outside that circle, and somehow there's situations in which they should be treated differently. And maybe there are. I don't
Like
know.
what?
I don't know. I mean, well, I mean, just the obvious things. I mean, maybe not as compared to Harry and Meghan, but obviously, you know, things that ordinary people could do in their lives without anyone caring, or anyone should taking an interest in. People who are in the position of being senior members of the royal family can't necessarily do that. And you know, they need levels of protection that ordinary folks don't need. And they need, you know, I mean, there's just, there's differences. I mean, clearly. But that being said,
Yeah.
When they themselves kind of set up this ridiculous dichotomy, and what they think they're entitled to is, you know, complete 100% hands off anyone scrutinizing any decision or action they ever take.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they should at least implicitly support, you know, every time Meghan Markle coughs, it's a, you know, worldwide trauma of some sort.
Yeah.
That's a big problem. And you know, they can't, you know, they shouldn't be able to silence the press, whether certain things should be something that the press is interested or not. I mean, that's an age-old argument. And for the reasons you said, there's reasons that this, you know, if William's using taxpayer money to do something, if you know, they're holding William and Kate's marriage up as like the, you know, epitome of
which
all
they
things
are.
wonderful. You know, perhaps there's, you know, I mean, I think they're inviting some of the scrutiny on themselves.
Well, and I think it's another case of kind of big institutions protecting one another.
Yeah.
Because the royal institution has put all of its eggs in the William and Kate basket, despite there being evidence that that basket has a lot of holes in it.
Yeah.
And I think actual evidence of another Windsor heir cheating on a wife with small children would be pretty devastating to that institution.
Yeah.
And so especially giants like the BBC, I just think this is another case of kind of, again, these big institutions not having any scrutiny or any, why can't I think of the word, like consequences for their own behavior because they're protecting each other.
Yeah. And really, I mean, you know, I mean, if the royal family would have wanted to be smart about it, instead of complaining about all the attention Harry and Meghan get, they should just let everyone pay attention to Harry and Meghan so they don't pay attention to Will and Kate. And this stuff flies under the radar. Right.
Their egos won't let them.
Because then a lot of this could have just flown right under the radar and no one would have paid attention. And I mean, probably kind of being quiet and keeping their mouth shut would have been a good way to, you know, prolong the kind of mystery of the royal family.
We
but
talk
I mean,
about
they
that.
Can't do that.
We talk about that on Twitter a lot because it's obvious that Will and Kate don't want to work. I mean, they have had 10 years of bottom rung engagement numbers. Right. They do not want to do these royal engagements. Right. And so really, and I said one of my most popular tweets this month was saying, it did not matter how popular Harry and Meghan got. They would have never been a threat to William and Kate's position. Right. Doesn't matter. They could be the most popular two people in the world. Doesn't matter.
Right.
So, again, I think it just comes down to ego and jealousy of really the way that William and Kate appear to want to live their lives, which is to go screw off in Norfolk and do whatever the hell they do over there, would have been to let Harry and Meghan take the charge for a little while. Right. And they just nicely, you know, go away.
Right.
Which is, whatever.
Well, yeah, and I mean, the press has put their eggs in Will and Kate's basket because they have to. I mean, there's no
Yes.
choice. I mean, that's the whole thing about the
Hereditary
the
monarchy.
hereditary monarchy. It's not like politicians where maybe there'll be somebody new in a few
No.
years. I mean, this is on a course, and that's the way it's going.
And Charles is screwed, so they have to jump to William and hope for the best.
Yeah,
Unless that William made the same mistake as his dad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never gotten clearly why they just didn't embrace Harry and Meghan instead of set themselves as, some sort of competitor, separate things. I mean, that was a bad decision. That could have been, helpful for the reputation of the royal family. It could have let Will and Kate fly under the radar. It could have solved a lot of problems, but for their own, I mean, and maybe that's yet another reason that a hereditary monarchy is bad, because it puts you from birth into some sort of headspace where you think you're special and worthy of, certain treatment and accommodation and other things that, maybe blind you to practical realities of what effect you're having.
I think that's gotten worse, and I think you can tell the two brothers took very different paths, like from their childhood on. Harry went into the military, and I have no doubt that he has lived an incredibly privileged life, and probably received some degree of privilege in the military, but for the most part, he says he was kind of treated like one of the guys. So he kind of went that route, and then had a wife who had experience in real world. Whereas William went spent a year or two kind of, I think, more in like academy type military settings, wanted to play around with his aristocratic friends who all want to pretend like they're farmers out in the middle of nowhere, which is hilarious, and picked a wife whose family was very into her kind of social climbing up to that rank. And I feel like you can really see the evidence of those two diverging paths with how they approached their marriages and what happened afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, this also again brought up the fact that Prince Philip's will is sealed for 90 years to prevent embarrassing the Queen, which is literally the language that was used to seal his will.
So who did he give money to that would embarrass
the kids.
Queen? Yeah.
How many of them? We do not know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Craziness.
Okay, so right after Twitter is all into hashtag Prince William affair, we started hearing news that Andrew was going to try and push a previous settlement between Guthrie and Epstein. So that story was starting. So yeah, they did not have a good end of the month.
No. Or beginning of the year.
So right after that, the end of the year engagement counts came out, and once again, Will and Kate were at the bottom. Kate did fewer engagements than a 95-year-old woman whose husband died during a global pandemic.
Yeah, it's
like she's just shaking her head. I mean, every year.
Yeah,
every year.
Well, it's clearly not going to change.
No,
I mean, I guess it will someday if they're ever actually the monarch.
Will it though?
Monarchs? I don't know. Maybe not. But I mean, at some point, if the head of the whole firm is not doing anything, the argument for maintaining the royal family is going to get slimmer and slimmer, seems to me.
I can't imagine, again, just being handed this platform, this insane platform, and doing nothing with it. And I know they have to be safe and they have to play, whatever. But imagine being able to reach this many people if you wanted to and doing F all with it.
Yeah. No, I think that's,
I just can't relate.
I can't either.
I don't get it.
Yeah. And they could certainly find non-controversial ways to be helpful to the world without, causing a fuss.
Yeah. Well, I've said for 10 years why they didn't just give her every children's sporting charity in the UK as the patron of, and just go play sports with kids and help kids through sports. It's like the only time she lights up.
Yeah.
Go do that, Kate. Unsurprising, as the poor end-of-year totals were being released, more Meghan hit pieces came out, this time mostly surrounding the cost of her jewelry and clothing. We hate to break it to the UK press, but Meghan is a very wealthy woman.
Yeah.
And she's not dependent on the taxpayer money.
Yeah.
And this part has always grinded my gears, and I know it shouldn't after, 4 years of this. But I hate how they always, always, always include the totals of Meghan's jewelry, even if she's reworn it before, while actively trying to make Kate's outfit seem as cheap as possible.
Yeah, it's just, they try way too hard. I mean, they really want, I think, Kate to come off as this sort of every woman, run-of-the-mill, everyone can relate to person. And I mean, I think it sort of goes against her nature a little bit, although I think some of that may have been kind of, I'm just going to say beaten out of her, and I don't mean literally.
Yes.
But I mean, I think instincts she may have had to sort of try and be more ordinary have been kind of...
Yeah, Will wouldn't like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, some of that when she did her own grocery shopping and stuff when they first got married, and I mean, I that didn't feel super staged. But now everything they do to try and seem like they're ordinary seems to me like it's just a PR thing and not a genuine, sincere thing. And I mean, I think it's just, I mean, it's easier, obviously, for Meghan to be more ordinary because she's lived the life of someone who's an ordinary person, and, and she's an American, and, we have less of that, yes, we have all kinds of celebrities and famous people and rich people and politicians, but we don't have people who...
We don't have royals.
We don't have royals. And we don't have that kind of, we have the, they're always trying to turn some political family or another into some sort of royal family, but it's not
the same.
Real. It's not the same. And there's obviously privileged people in the United States and incredibly wealthy people in the United States. But I just think, I don't know. I mean, I think when you have grown up without that, it's a lot easier to comport yourself as a non-royal because that's really what you've always been. And even though Kate obviously wasn't born into royalty, I think she's been much more kind of malleable and convinced by people that she has to behave a certain way and that, certain things are beneath her station probably and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I think that's, maybe that's among the many reasons why it seems like she's too skinny for it to be just natural. I mean, I think she's under probably a pretty consistent level of stress and everything else.
She looks miserable and she looks anxious in public quite frequently. And it's hard to have sympathy for her because she put herself in this situation and because she watched her sister-in-law get absolutely hammered and did zero about it. Although I would admit that it's probably a debate about how much she could have done about it. But it's just, again, I guess this is why I just want to scream sometimes is it's just so obvious.
Yeah.
It is so obvious that she was rewarded for being a thin white woman who was willing to be obedient to her husband's family, and Meghan is not, and she was punished for it. And these stupid ass
rewarded in the press.
Well, rewarded in the press.
I mean, seriously, I mean, whose life do you want? I mean, it doesn't seem like Kate is happy. It doesn't seem like she's, found any sort of, outside of her immediate family. And, I'm sure she has purpose with her kids. It doesn't seem like she's found much to give her life a whole lot of meaning outside of that. And I mean, it's sad and it's pathetic. And the fact that they are kind of replaying, the whole Diana scenario to a large degree seems sad too.
Yeah. Well, and it's just, I know it's petty to talk about, jewelry. The other thing they would love to do is compare their makeup, and both women would be wearing, an absolute full face of makeup. But of course, Meghan was too overdone, and Kate, was barefaced, despite her obviously having eyelash extensions, but whatever.
That's that word you told me I couldn't use.
What?
On YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Starts with an R and ends with an ism.
No, ist. You can say racism. You can't call someone a.
Well, I'm not calling. Okay, then that's. I mean,
it's racism.
That's racism.
But it's just so obvious, and that's why I just want to scream. Like, it's just like, come on.
Yeah.
Okay. Where am I? Okay. Oh, Betty White died. And the best tweet I saw was R.I.P. Betty White. I hope she's whooping Ronald Reagan's ass as we speak. I hope that's true.
It was sad. I was sort of sad that she didn't get to make it to her 100th birthday.
But she technically
although
did.
It was, well, yeah.
She's lived 100 years.
Yeah. And, it was, I mean, someone said, kind of going out right after there's been a national magazine cover about you, in advance of your big 100th birthday celebration kind of might have been the, good comic timing. So,
yeah. And she seemed like a cool lady. I mean, to have that long of a career and really no scandals and just all these like super cool stories about you, just being a cool person in general, I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find people, especially these days, that aren't polarizing somehow or another, and she managed to kind of transcend all the nonsense. So,
the royals were heavily mentioned in the spoof death to 2021. One of the main parts was skewering Prince Philip, quoting, "He was not racist, he just had a racist sense of humor." And that's funny, right? But it also...
funny and sad. Yeah.
Well, it's both.
Yeah.
But I also think that was a story that got kind of missed this year, is that people didn't really care that Prince Philip had died. I mean, there was like the UK press doing their thing. Yeah. But apparently there were hundreds of thousands of complaints about how long the TV coverage of his death went. There didn't really seem to be a whole outpouring of public mourning. I mean, I think it was kind of a warning shot against the royals' bow that, Prince Philip died, and it was kind of like, yeah, that's sad.
Well, I think there's a couple things, though, too.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, he was old.
Okay, yes,
really
he
old.
was very old.
And it was clearly coming. I mean...
No, Harry and Meghan did it, Mom. Their Oprah interview.
It was clearly coming. And, I think people at this point in where we are worldwide, having endured a pandemic for so long and so many people having died, I think to some degree there's kind of I don't know, I think everyone's kind of just tired of people dying in general. And
like death fatigue.
A lot of people, death fatigue. And a lot of people have experienced, unexpected deaths in their own lives. And so the death of a 99-year-old guy who was clearly in bad health, I'm not sure is, super earth-shattering.
Well, I don't think it was super earth-shattering. And it just was interesting that, again, like the BBC, ITV, they were trying to kind of like drum up public sympathy, and it just wasn't happening. And I think that is concerning. And of course, I mean, when the Queen eventually goes, that will be a huge deal because she's the Queen. But I was surprised at the lack of response from Prince Philip.
Well,
it seemed a big shrug.
I mean, it seems to me, and I could easily be wrong, but it seems to me the royal family's ability to have every life event be a humongous deal has greatly waned.
Well, yeah,
in general.
They won't have another big wedding for probably 20 years.
Yeah.
That's...
Yeah.
Okay, this is the last time we're going to talk about Kate. I didn't realize we were going to go into so much detail. But so keening season is here, where we have to talk about how Kate's, going to be so much better this year, this time marked by her 40th birthday. And there was a really weird article in the Daily Mail from named Kate sources, which was really defensive and ended up being kind of a laundry list as why she hasn't achieved more. It was very reactive. They named specific complaints, and what was kind of the most important part is they pretty much threw William under the bus for his treatment of Harry and Meghan. They basically said Kate had no choice because William was so upset and William was so angry. So, the Sussexes said she was cold, but Kate had no choice. She had to go with her husband. It just was kind of interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how these things occasionally slip through, but they do apparently.
Well, and I think as the rest of the world has come to the conclusion, kind of from 2020 on, that the royals' treatment of Harry and Meghan was pretty shit. Yeah. I think there's evidence that Betty and Charles are not kind of super stoked about how this whole thing went down. And I've said that for a long time. But it was just kind of interesting that at least someone in the Cambridge camp appears to have recognized that their actions weren't great. Yeah. And that's taken a long time. But that was the first time I had seen kind of somebody in Kate's camp be like, yeah, that maybe wasn't that wasn't maybe the choice.
Yeah. Well,
just kind of interesting.
It's kind of getting to the point where it's hard for them to avoid, realizing that, I think, because I think it's just gone spectacularly badly. And
I think they're very insulated from that. Yeah, so I just was surprising that kind of so directly someone in Kate's camp was like, no, William decided and Kate had to do it. Yeah. Well, she didn't have a choice.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's just, it's 2022, folks. 40-year-old woman shouldn't be,
Yeah, but they've always, part of the whole Kate thing is they've always treated her like she was about 10 years younger. Yeah. Like, that's the whole thing. When they got married at 28, they were treated like they were, 18, 19. When they had their first kids in their early 30s, they were treated like super young. That's been part of the whole thing. Yeah. Is let's pretend that they're much younger than they are to give them an excuse. Which isn't going to work because they're visibly aging. Oh, well.
Yeah, the whole, you must be obedient to your husband thing to me was, seems like
which is funny because I think she struck that notion. I think she struck that from her vows. Yeah. But then over the course of 10 years has just shown how willing and obedient she is going to be. So she didn't say it then, but her actions have reinforced it.
Yeah, and I think obviously certain outsiders like Kate have been treated better than other outsiders like Meghan, but I think in general the whole notion is, if you're a non-royal, you've got to obey the royals.
Oh, I think marrying into that family, other than the money aspect, would be a total bummer. Yeah. Multiple royal reporters on January 1st promised they would stop talking about Harry and Meghan, notably Dan Wooten. None of them lasted a single day. Yeah. They want to focus on the royals, Mom. Yeah. Didn't last 24 hours.
At this point, seriously, why did they even... really, it seems to me it's hard for them to come up with an excuse to talk about Harry and Meghan, who are living in America, who are not senior members of the royal family, who are having, basically nothing to do with any of that. If you're covering the British royal family, what on earth do Harry and Meghan have to do with you these days? Nothing.
But the problem is that even William and Kate, their saviors, they do not drive engagement. Right. They do not drive clicks. You have to mention Harry and Meghan.
I know. But it just seems ridiculous to me.
It is ridiculous. Yeah. And I think to some degree they realize it looks so ridiculous, so that's why you get these promises and then they can't make it. So lots and lots of Andrew news. First, the agreement, which the judge wasn't happening, which was basically at some point during their settlement, Guthrie agreed not to sue Epstein's friends or something. I don't know. The secret Tory tweeted, "You can't sue me because my nonce mate paid you not to sue his nonce mate." Isn't a great defense for a supposedly innocent man, especially one who has insisted that he was not friends with Epstein.
Right. Usually you go for the technicality kind of stuff when there's nothing of substance.
And then, in my opinion, the more egregious news is that his lawyer wanted the judge to say that New York's law giving child sexual abuse victims more time to sue is unconstitutional. Yeah. Like, come on. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. And the British press silent.
Well, and again, that's still sort of falling back on a technicality kind of argument.
Oh, of course it's falling on it.
Instead of,
they ran out the clock.
Substance. Yeah.
Why, I don't get, doesn't murder have like unlimited statute of limitations? Yes. I don't get why any violent crime doesn't have unlimited statute of limitations. That just seems stupid.
Well, I think they've been expanding them, and I think,
especially like when it comes to this, we know victims of childhood sexual assault a lot of times will not come forward for a long time.
For a long time, the law cut them off because there'd be like 3 or 5 or whatever your statute of limitations. Yeah. And then they'd become adults and want to sue somebody, and it would be unavailable because
well, Prince
they
Andrew
were
wants to go back
minors.
to that.
But so I mean, a lot of that has now that's been changed to address the fact that you know
Victims.
sometimes victims aren't in a place to sue until they're much older. So that has been addressed. But I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like you have to have, let's just say that murder's like the worst. You have to have varying degrees of, I mean, if everything, has an unlimited statute of limitations and everything has a, lifetime prison sentence and everything, it kind of,
oh, well, I didn't say that.
You lose
I didn't
like
say that. I just don't get why certain violent crimes have a cutoff like that. I just don't get it.
Well, it makes less sense now in the days of, where there's like often DNA evidence or something that you can point to. But I mean, once upon a time before the technology kind of caught up, it was people's memories fade and things fade. And I think it was viewed as unfair to, bring up charges way after the fact when,
someone might not be able to defend themselves.
Right, someone may not be able to defend themselves. And like I said, with the advent of new technology and stuff, I think that's less of a compelling argument. But I think that's the reason for it historically.
It's long been rumored that the Queen is paying for this defense. So the Queen is paying for someone to say that child sexual abuse victims should have less time in court.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how it all works. I don't know where Andrew gets his money other than from his family.
Yeah, but even if it's private money, I'd still argue, like...
Right. But I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't get why... I think it's bad enough that he's sort of coming up with all this nonsense. The fact that anybody is, helping him in that effort in any way, including monetarily, seems just completely egregious and absurd. But
and there's always been questions about how his security is paid for, because most of the time security is paid for by the taxpayer. Yeah. So, of course, I know this whole thing has been basically comparisons between Harry and Meghan, but this is the worst one.
Yeah.
This is the worst one, which is that Andy has been allowed, there's been no talk about his titles, that he's been allowed to keep security. He's been kept on the royal financial leash. He's been allowed to keep his patronages, even though some of them have asked for him to be removed. While Harry and Meghan left and were cut off immediately. Yeah. So, we can joke about makeup and other stuff, but this is the worst one.
Yeah. Yeah, it is bad.
And how they defend it, which is they just don't. They just don't talk about Andy. That's what they, Andrew, sorry. That's what they just do is you go and look at all these royal reporters, you go look at the BBC, you go look at, The Guardian, big UK news outlets are still treating Prince Andrew with the kiddiest of kid gloves. And the royal family with kiddiest. I mean, there's all these articles the past week or two about how we should feel bad for, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah. It's... Well, and the BBC had...
what's his face?
What's his face?
What's his face?
Why am I blanking out?
Who cares? You know who we're talking about. That shithead.
Yeah.
Who's been accused of?
Which they had to apologize for because he was another one of Epstein's buddies, and they failed to mention that when they had him on as some expert about how the bad rule, the verdict against Maxwell was really great news for Prince Andrew.
Oh my gosh! But it's just this is the worst one.
Alan Dershowitz.
Screw you, Alan Dershowitz. Love me.
I knew that would come to me when I stopped thinking.
But this is by far the worst one, and it is again just so obvious the protection that has been extended to Prince Andrew by the family and the press, despite him being accused of horrific things repeatedly, with photo evidence that at least he was close to this circle of people. Yeah. They have done everything they can to protect him, and they did absolutely nothing for Meghan Markle,
who did
absolutely nothing wrong.
Right. And it's blatantly obvious, and they don't seem to care. Yeah. I mean, it makes you wonder I mean, I think he's the Queen's favorite only goes so far. I think,
Oh, no, I totally...
There absolutely has to be something
everyone says,
more than that.
When Charles is the king, he's going to boot him out. No, he's not.
Yeah, there's something.
No, he's not. He knows.
He has to have something on somebody or something.
Well, or even if it's not something specifically on them, he knows how long the Queen and Charles and other high-ranking members have known about him.
Yeah.
He will be on the royal payroll the rest of his life.
Yeah.
They will never cut him off because he knows.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's,
Well, that always brings up, this is the question I'm constantly asking myself, and yesterday it was Jon Stewart was talking about the Harry Potter series and how there's caricatures of Jews in that. But he wouldn't call, what's-her-face? J.K. Rowling anti-Semitic. Right. Like, he stopped right there. And it's like, how many caricatures of Jews do you have to write before we're allowed to call you anti-Semitic? That's an honest question. Same thing with the British royal family. How many friends who are either accused or convicted of sex crimes against children do you have to be friends with before we can start calling you some things?
Right.
Same thing, Prince William. How many times can you say something really racist against, Black Africans?
I was going to say, how many times can you wonder about the skin color of your your siblings' children
before we're allowed to call you the word we're not allowed to say on YouTube?
Yeah.
That's always, I always think about that. Like, how is there a 3-strike rule? Is there how many times you got to do something or tolerate someone else doing something before we're allowed to put some not nice labels on you?
I don't know, and I don't know why certain labels are so taboo. It's like, why can't you use the R, N's, and IST word, against
when someone
people?
does something.
I mean, it's not just on YouTube. It's kind of universal. That's like, oh my God, that's the worst thing you could possibly do is call someone that. Like worse than being that, apparently. Worse than, I mean, it's just, I don't understand it.
Well, and my favorite is when the person defends themselves and people go, oh, yeah, okay. And it's like, well, they don't get to decide.
Right.
You don't get to decide that you're not, anti-Semitic or not something else.
Right.
You don't get to do that.
Right.
It's not up to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose it could be, but if whatever you're saying and doing is causing the whole world to think you're a certain way, you probably need to examine yourself if you think you're not that way.
Yeah, that would include introspection that no current member of the royal family has ever exhibited.
That's very true.
All right, I have 40-something minutes of audio to edit.
One for every year of Kate's life.
Oh my God. Yeah, but I'm gonna have to put more work in getting this video up than she's done all year. Oh my God. Goodbye. Say goodbye.
Goodbye. I say goodbye.
Oh my gosh, goodbye.